Good evening, everyone. As I'm sure people will come in. Um, my name's George. Nice place to brew. I am currently alone. Hopefully, Jason and Polly will be joining me here shortly. Otherwise, this might be a pretty quick webcast. Jason, if you follow us on our very occasionally used social media, just got married last weekend and went off to his honeymoon, but he's supposed to be back today. So I am hoping that he will join me shortly. I did want to go over what I'm drinking tonight because, well, I mess with tradition. I do have Wallenpompak Brewing the Maibach, which honestly is kind of nifty because I was just outside and saw a doe with two new fawns, so kind of is what I have in my backyard. So this is from the Poconos in Pennsylvania. And they do a pretty good job. It's pretty clear. I like it. All right. So, if anybody's out there, feel free to drop me a line, ask me a question. Be more than happy to answer any questions on home brewing or professional brewing or anything like that. As you know, we call ourselves we tend to say that we offer tips from the semi-pros, and that's because both Jason and I have participated in professional brew days before. And hey, Jason.
Good evening.
And recently, I can't hear you, buddy. Recently, we were down at Route 66, old school brewing in Wilmington, Illinois, and did a brew day with our buddy Polly, and we were from what reports that we're getting, it was an amber ale which we called Save the Clock Tower, a little bit of a throwback to our Back to the Future naming conventions. And from what we hear, it is actually going over fairly well from a
at least at first taste.
Let me make sure that I can hear me. Jason, try again.
Check.
All right. It was me. That's my bad.
Okay. All right.
So,
how's it going?
It is going, man.
Good. We need a full intro, or covered it already?
I covered it pretty much. You know, we're a nice place to brew. I'm drinking beer. I was here all alone, holding down the fort. Mentioned your wedding on our very occasionally used social media presence. And then I also have a beer which I just realized I said was the wrong name. It is the Maibach from Wallenpompak. It is a Maibach, which is what I had said originally. It's pretty tasty.
All right.
So, what Wisconsin-driven beer did you bring home?
So, I do have one. I just got back from Door County, Wisconsin, which, for those of you who are not from the Midwest, Door County, it makes up the Wisconsin Peninsula, where you go about halfway up the state. There's a small little part of the state that sticks out into Lake Michigan. That's Door County. And that is home to a lot of wineries, orchards, and a lot of sightseeing. There's a lot of naval history that makes up the area. It's a big tourism town for good reason. It's a very, very nice place to go. Well worth the trip if you're able to. So anyways, brewing, beer brewing specifically in Door County takes a back seat to winemaking, and another thing that's big there is cider making. I'll talk about that more later on in the episode. But I did get to drink some locally made beer, and here's what I have tonight. This is appropriately named Door County Brewing Company, and this is a beer called Vacation Land. It's a
Okay.
juicy IPA, 6.2% ABV. I have not tried this yet, so this is going to be a bit of a taste test. The can artwork is fantastic. This is a graphical map of the peninsula.
Oh yeah, look at
You can
that.
kind of see it right there on that side.
Yeah.
So, anyways, let me take a sip, and I will tell you more about Door County Brewing Company.
So while you're doing that, like Door County Brewing Company, and there's, I honestly can't think of it. Like, oh, duh, Unionville Brewing Company, and things like that. Usually the first brewery in an area gets to claim that name. And so, do you think a brewery ever gets there and is like, son of a bitch, someone beat me to it?
I would imagine that happens a lot more times than you would think. Because I don't think to name something after a town is entirely up for grabs. I wish, you know what? If we were able to bring in somebody who's in politics, we could probably have an interesting conversation about stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, you think so? You think they have to get approval from the city?
I definitely think so. And I
Okay.
wonder what else is involved in that.
I think that's probably going to depend on where they are. Like, I doubt Unionville Brewing Company went to the county and was like, "Hey, can we name it this?"
You may be surprised. Well,
I might be. And next time I'm there,
yeah,
I'm going to
yeah.
ask them, and they're probably going to laugh at me. But
I'm sure there was absolutely zero pushback of any kind.
yeah,
But it's hard for me to imagine that they just took it upon themselves to slap the town's name on their brewery.
okay,
Ask them though.
I will.
Actually, that'd be interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, how's the beer?
It's good.
Yeah.
Juicy IPA. I was expecting kind of a session flavor. I thought the ABV was going to be a little bit lower than this, to be honest, because I seem to remember this being on the menu as kind of a session IPA.
What ABV is it?
6.2. So
All right.
somewhat, I mean, you're
High end
kind of
of
right on the
sessionable.
top end of what you'd consider sessionable.
Hey, man, Wisconsinites go hard. So yeah.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
you're not wrong. Yeah. Let me look this up. So Door County Brewing Company is I shouldn't say in a really nice building. It has a fantastic setup. It's got a rustic feel. It has wooden tables lined up on the inside of it. They have an immediate porch area where they have a bunch of other picnic tables set up. And then they have a back area. Like it's kind of, you would call it a backyard if there was a yard, but it's just a back gravel area. They got a bunch of tables lined up. They have a hut set up that they usually dispense 3 to 4 different beers on given summer days, just to keep some traffic from the regular tap room and keep the lines at a fair distance.
Mm-hmm.
And they also have a musical stage where they do bookings occasionally, and they have an open fire pit.
Okay.
And when the wife and I went there, the fire pit was going. It was between the hours of 5 and 6 in the late afternoon. You're getting into dinner time. Still a fair amount of a number of people around. Great atmosphere. It wasn't too hot. It wasn't too cold, but the temperature was kind of just right that the fire just felt really nice. And to just sit back, enjoy a beer, just felt amazing. I'm like,
Nice.
man, am I in the right place? I did at this brewery what I encourage a lot of people to do when you go to a brewery for a first time. I ordered a session ale, just the most basic beer on the menu.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to give you the picture of, what the white car beer will taste like, because it's one of those beers where all the imperfections are going to show up, and it's a great measuring stick for a brewery. And that's exactly what I did. I ordered a session ale. I will try to find it here while we're talking. We'll see if I can find it or not. It was a 4.2 ABV beer, as clear as can be, and just as clear and crisp of a beer flavor as you would ever expect.
Nice.
So I would call that from Door County Brewing a smashing success.
Very nice.
So
that was an ale and not a lager.
It was a. Oh, that's a good question.
I'm just thinking of what those usual like low ABV, nice crisp, clean beers are. A lot of times they're a lager, but they can do it. We can do it in an ale as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh man, where is Polly? If I can take a minute here, I can look this up. But
No worries,
we gotta
man.
keep the.
No worries.
Gotta
I was
keep the
telling
talk.
it. I was saying. I think you might have heard a little bit when you were coming in that initial reports on the Save the Clock Tower beer are very positive.
So far, so good. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think we might have made the best thing that Route 66 is going to have on the menu there.
We, as in we, and I say you and I, worked really hard on it, sitting at the bar drinking beer while
Hey!
Paulie is working his ass off.
We did our part, we poured the grains, stirred the thing, we did all the things you usually do.
Hey, listen,
Yeah.
it takes a lot of good beer to make 75 gallons of great beer.
Of great beer, exactly. And we were just doing our part by making sure that we had all the good beer that we needed to do that. So
That's exactly right.
right. The whole project would have fallen apart without us at the bar.
You're right.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a fun day.
It was.
Paulie-
It was a very cool day.
You found it?
I found the brewery. Okay, I'm scanning here for Okay, found it.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for correcting me. It is not an ale. It is a lager.
Okay.
And the beer is called League Night.
League Night. Okay.
Yep.
So, do they have kind of a sports theme going on? Because if I'm thinking back to the can, it looked like they had some like sports imagery on there.
I don't think it's.
No. Okay.
I don't think that's a thing they're playing real strong in.
Right.
I mean, this may be the only sports themed beer. I'm not sure. There was no common thread among the names that I could tell.
Okay. Cool.
So, anyways, let's.
So, it
let me
was
go ahead and share this.
Sure.
So just to get a picture of what League Night looks like. There you go. Ta-da!
Yeah. Look at that. Okay.
Yeah. 4.2 ABV.
Nice lager, like probably like an American lager.
Yeah.
Okay.
Crisp, clear, exactly what you'd be looking for. So
Nice.
the other beer that I had there was a Imperial Milk Stout,
Of course.
flavored with maple syrup. I got to tell you, I'm sorry, maple syrup and coffee.
Oh, interesting.
So there's a
Okay.
lot going on there. You got
Yeah.
milk stout, coffee, and maple syrup.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome. I tried to walk away with some of it. Couldn't do it. They said they did can a batch of it, and it did not last. I mean, it flew off the shelves, and I see why. And we talk on this webcast a lot about balance when you're doing flavors, barrel aging just being one of those.
Mm-hmm.
This beer is one of the most glowing examples of balance that I've had in a long time,
Nice.
especially with all that going on. Like, it would be easy for one of those flavors to just overwhelm the beer and it just becomes something it shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
This beer didn't have that.
Nice.
The coffee was balanced perfectly. It was not chalky tasting. It was just a little bit sweet. It was just a little bit kind of stouty. It was awesome. 7.8% ABV. If you can find this beer, there may be a shelf somewhere that still has this beer, and if you just happen to come across it, run.
So I'm surprised, it sounds like if what you're telling me is right, which I'm sure it is, that it's a seasonal thing for them, which I'm surprised that that they did it now in the summer. Especially what you're describing with the coffee and the syrup and everything. I would expect that to be more late fall,
Late fall,
Yeah.
winter months. You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I didn't ask him when they brewed it.
Okay.
That is a very good question.
Yeah. You got to talk to the brewer?
No,
No,
just
okay.
just whoever was running the tap room.
Okay. Yeah.
That would be a damn shame if that was a carryover from the winter. I can't imagine it would have.
Hey, if it held up that well and it's carryover from the winter, that's,
You have a point. You
yeah.
have a point there, but and to be honest, I didn't even see how big their system was. It was all behind a counter, and their equipment was not as visible as it was like walking into Route 66.
Right.
So I couldn't tell you, are they making 10 barrels at a time or if it's 2 barrels. I'm not sure.
Okay. Speaking of systems,
Yeah.
do we want to describe our brew day with one Polly?
We certainly do.
Yeah. Okay.
It takes a lot of good beer to make 75 gallons of great beer. Okay.
Yes.
Let me before we dive into this, is there any points about Door County beer that I need to go into in more detail?
Is that the only brewery you went to up there?
Only brewery. Yep.
Well, that's a shame.
It was. I tell you, it was. I'll tell you off air about the rest of the trip. It was
Okay.
a jammed full 3 days.
Okay.
Jammed full. So a great time. Like nothing negative at all. Just the amount of time to sit back and enjoy. Craft beer was limited this time.
Okay.
So, yeah, closing that out. Vacation Land. This juicy IPA. This, I believe, if there was a mass-produced beer that they're doing, this is probably the one. Juicy IPAs being a go-to.
Sure.
I did find this on at least one other store shelf that I went to throughout Door County. Actually, I think it's more like 2. And I understand why. And I think this is a worthy selection. So wherever you are, I and not knowing how far their distribution goes, but Door County Brewing Company is definitely worth a try.
Okay.
Oh, one last thing.
Oh,
okay.
yes.
There is one. I didn't do the share. Okay. I got excited about something.
I can tell.
Yeah. and then we'll move on to Brew Day, I promise. Okay. So as members of the Joliet Brewers Guild, we like to add our stickers, our logo stickers to breweries that oftentimes invite clubs and other breweries to stick their artwork on places. Route 66 is one of just many, many places like this that have just a wall. Everybody just slaps their swag on it and just calls it a day. And, it becomes kind of bragging rights for a lot of places as they go. So I, being a longtime member of the JBG, will never leave the house without a sticker. Am I oftentimes putting stickers down? No. But listen, I'll seize the moment when I see fit, and this was one of those.
Okay.
I'm a long ways from home, being all the way up in Door County, and I'm like, okay, I found a brewery that I think needs a sticker. So I did. Slapped a sticker on a wall, posted it to the JBG Social Club, and just thought I was doing the club proud. Well, I'm going to pull up said post, and George, you can tell me if something's wrong with this.
Okay.
All right. Where did it go? Oh, here it is.
Let's see.
And attention listeners, get ready for a really good laugh here. So here you go. I slapped the sticker right here.
Yep.
Underneath a sticker that says Punk Ass Cat. Some hop logos. And do you see something in that picture?
I do see one. It's a very familiar sticker in the upper right-hand corner.
Guess who didn't notice that before he planted said sticker on?
Now they know for sure that the JBG has been there. Yeah. Did you figure out who did that?
No.
No? Who beat you to it?
And
No.
honestly, I posted this before I even noticed that there was a second sticker in the same image.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. That was a moment right there. All right. So, lesson to everybody. If you belong to a brew club that prints their own merchandise, stickers being one of them, watch the board carefully.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
brew day.
Brew day. Yes. So Paulie himself has described on this very show that his setup is kind of homebrew plus. He almost refuses to call it a professional brew setup.
Yes, he does.
Part of that is his own modesty that he is. It doesn't want to admit that he's a professional brewer and he's just a super modest guy. But I will admit, part of it is accurate that I have not. I've participated in brew days at professional breweries before, and this was the closest I've had to a homebrew setup at a professional brewery.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you think? Is that pretty accurate?
It's hard for me to put a brewery of the scale of Route 66 and just having enough complexity like pumps to move beer around. It's hard for me to categorize that within a home brewer setup.
Okay.
I mean, you'd be aligning that with just the most complex of homebrew setups if you absolutely had to.
Sure. No, I get that. It did have a Herm setup and everything, so
Yeah.
it definitely was on the high. If you're comparing it to a home brewer setup, you're comparing it to an advanced home brewer setup that has high end equipment and
Sure.
planning and stuff like that. But where I'm going is things like when we're loading up the mash tun. We're loading up the mash tun with buckets of milled grain that we brought from 3 rooms away into this device, and then scooping it out at the end with a pitcher into trash cans. And Polly's setup is really, it's both good and bad in that each one of his kettles is 2 kettles kind of stacked on top of each other that has a grommet in between to keep it together.
Right.
Once they're together, you can connect a sight glass and everything, and you can see exactly how much is in there. All that's great. Those grommets are a giant pain in the ass. And it took us a while to actually get his setup together and everything. So it's just things like that I'm, on a usual, when I've participated in brew days before, it's usually a little bit more user friendly. And things like that. So he's definitely got a job of work when he does a brew day there. I'll tell you that.
So let's get into the weeds with that.
Okay.
So being that you're experienced on other brewing system, Unionville being one of the ones that comes to mind, in what ways is the brew day at Unionville easier than what Paulie does?
So like I said, Polly's equipment you kind of have to assemble and then disassemble in order to use and clean and things like that. A lot of brew setups are not like that. Like take for example the mash tun at Unionville, and when I participated with one in Fredericksburg, they are more of a fixed setup where and I know Blue Island is like this too, where you load everything in from the top, and then it has all you have the pumps and everything to do the Vorloff and stuff, but then it has a door at the bottom that you open, and you can literally just rake out the grains into a container, and you take out the false bottom baffles at the bottom, clean those up, you put it back in. You are together and clean in sometimes like 10 15 minutes with minimal assembly and disassembly. So that's kind of the thing I'm referring to.
Yeah, I mean, comparing Blue Island to what Paulie does is night and day. I
for sure
admit that.
Yeah.
But not having experience of brewing on other smaller setups, like something like a 3, 4, 5 gallon 5 barrel setup, for example. I need a more of a picture of that in my own head to know what that brew day would maybe look like outside of what Paulie has.
Well, to be perfectly honest, that's part of it in my mind, is that Paulie's setup is a 3 barrel setup, which at craft brewery terms is micro brew, to the point where some might call it like pico brewery kind of thing. That's
Sure.
the very small end. Like there's the story of the dude that made Dogfish Head, that he was literally running off of a 10-gallon system in the back room for a while.
Yep.
You don't see that much anymore, and I don't envy that dude how much he had to brew. But, the same kind of holds true for Paulie. He has to brew quite a lot to produce the volume necessary for, his area, and for especially this time of year, tourists that are coming through on Route 66 stopping in for a beer before they move on. And so he ends up having to produce a lot of beer. There's upsides and downsides to that a little bit. Downside, you got to brew a lot. Upside, he's got a good variety, because each time he brews, he can brew something different and have it on tap. And if it doesn't sell all that well, like his beloved milkshake IPA, they don't have to worry about getting rid of too much of it. But I think if they expand much more, if Wilmington grows much more, or if they want to enter the world of distribution at all, they're going to have to look at some equipment upgrades.
Yeah, that's true. I think they realize that too.
Yeah.
So I guess the question becomes, how much do they want to grow and how much they think is appropriate to grow, given their geography, given their clientele.
Sure.
I mean, any brewery that's looking to invest further in their operation, you just have to ask those questions.
Absolutely.
So
that's, kind of first impressions for me. What did you think?
I mean, I think I would echo all those comments. I just viewed it as, okay, this is what making 100 gallons of beer instead of 5 looks like.
Yeah. Well,
knowing that a step up being something like Blue Island is just a completely different animal.
It is, yeah.
So basically with those examples, you have 3 tiers of examples: homebrew, Route 66, Blue Island. Just that.
Yeah.
And is that what making 100 gallons of beer looks like? And I was prepared to say, okay, this is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But obviously that's coming from a limited lens.
Yeah, and Paulie, admits he stands on the shoulders of giants a little bit, like the previous brewers did a lot to get the system to where it is. But Paulie himself has made some significant upgrades to it, revamped the pump system and things like that to make his brew day easier, as well as to make sure that he's getting the best product that he can out of it, which he's doing a great job with that. He's hitting his numbers all the time and everything.
Yeah.
So, where was I going with that? Oh, so I don't mean to say that I'm not trying to denigrate Route 66 or Poly or the setup at all. I'm just saying that it is definitely a job of work at that setup to get the job done.
No question.
Yeah.
And I think Paulie would very quickly agree. And I just saying that, I'm like, oh, I bet Paulie's going to dial in right now.
Yeah. So, yeah, the other thing we did out there, that when we first got there, Jason got robbed at a homebrew competition. You ended up taking what, 4th on that, right?
Yeah.
Nah, should have been higher. So, I'd be interested to put this out there because, you tried it, but you said you liked it. There was a Marzen that won that, for me, was too sweet. Sometimes you can get a Marzen and it's like drinking syrup, and that's kind of the impression I got off of this one a little bit. Jason, I've had your Marzen, and I have not gotten that impression. I think you've got a good balance in there.
Thank you.
But, what did you think?
So you and I had differing opinions on this.
Mm-hmm.
So I make a Marzen every year. Mm-hmm. It is a style that I go to and I enjoy greatly. I took first place the first time I made a Marzen, so I'm a little bit spoiled in that regard. For my own taste, that Marzen that I won the award was a little bit dry, but that kind of speaks to some people's palates. I mean, there's definitely a good section of beer drinkers and beer judges that will appreciate a drier flavor. I think that a little bit of a sweeter edge is better. That's my
Okay.
opinion. That's, I mean, just my own, not speaking to the style or not. This Marzen that we're talking about that won the competition, I took one sip of and I said, "Shit," because I knew it right away. I was like, "This is a winner, and this beer is fantastic." And it hit on every note of the Marzen style that I really like.
It was good. I don't want to take away, the fact that they did a very good job, but it's just a little sweet in my mind. So
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway,
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, making 100 gallons of that on Pauly's system, I will be very interested. I have not had a Marzen made by Pauly at Route 66. I think by the time he started last year, it was well past the point that they're introducing Marzens to the menu. So I don't think the opportunity has presented itself yet.
okay.
If they can replicate those sweet notes that we tasted there at the competition, I think that beer will be a smash hit. I
Okay,
really do.
So you bring up a good point, and here I am saying I don't like beer that is as sweet as all that.
Right.
And we just put for a pound of molasses in our, So
That is a really good point.
it is, and so far, like I said, the reviews on it have been good. But all right, so we should get back to the brew day,
Sure.
which actually started the day before.
The day before. Okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So we took care of the grain measurements and milling on day one, just to make our true brew day a little bit easier.
Right.
So
Yeah, milled everything down into like Homer buckets, paint buckets, and took them into the brewery, and stage them for the next day. Now, my initial thought was, Polly, why don't we put them into the mash tun, and just have them be there and ready for us when we're ready to add the water and everything. That question was quickly answered once we started the actual brew day. So
this is a great thing to talk. I know where you're going, and this is a great thing to talk about.
Polly, and I've seen this done at other breweries and on other home brewer setups before, he actually adds the water to the mash tun and then adds the grains to the water.
So to put this another way, he pours the milk and then it puts the cereal in.
Yes, absolutely. That's very first thing I thought of, and is ass backwards, and is just like. But I mean, I kind of get it, because if you add in the like a lot of times on a homebrew setup, on my homebrew setup, what I'll do is I will add some boiling water, usually about a kettle's worth, like a tea kettle's worth, to the mash tun, kind of swirl it around and dump that to preheat the mash tun. Poly kind of solves that problem by just putting in the strike water and adding the grains to it, so he doesn't have to worry about any of that. But I mean, especially with the height of the building that they have there, that resulted in a lot of stirring and a lot of careful addition of those grains in order to get everything right. But I mean, the other part of it is, if you're adding those to the water and you're stirring them in as you go, you're making sure that you get an even distribution of grains and water.
True.
So I can see upsides to it.
Remind me, how far into the water transfer did we get before we put the grains in?
All the way. I think we put
all
the strike water in, didn't we?
That's what I thought. Okay. I like what you're saying a lot more. about just gradually introducing it as the water's being transferred and the water level is rising.
What I wasn't saying that, but that's a great idea too.
Yeah.
I like that. Of kind of as it gets introduced to the kettle, adding in the grains and everything, so you can make sure it gets mixed in well. He did add them. He did add the water. Oh no, he didn't. He pumped it in from the bottom. I was gonna say he added it through the sparge arm, but he didn't. He pumped it in from the bottom.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So then, once that was in, all mixed together, we had our dough in and we got up to temperature. We started the timer on that. And we hit, I think, 150. Is that right?
That sounds about right.
Okay.
Oh, hold on. Let's look at our text message. We that was just told to us just yesterday.
The original gravity was?
Yeah, they both were on there.
Okay.
Yep. Original gravity 1057, final 1012.
Oh, 1057. Okay. So, but we hit 150 temperature wise, right? That's what I was referring to, was the temperature.
Oh, crap. I'm sorry. What was the mash temperature? Yeah, I think 150
I think it was 150.
About, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we hit that and we started the mash and did all of that and let it mash in. We did a single infusion. Didn't get fancy with it. Did the sparge, and Polly adds his salts to the strike water when it goes in, and then to the boil for the sparge water. So that way he doesn't have to worry about salts in his hot liquor tank, messing up the chemistry in there.
Right.
Sparged everything over to the boil kettle, and then brought it up to temperature. And electric brewery setups take a long time.
Yeah. This one kind of caught us by surprise.
It did. And is this when we went to the bar while we were waiting for the boil? I feel like it was.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty sure you're right.
Yeah.
Well, I remember then Paulie was hard at work on doing something, and it was probably preparing the fermenter.
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll go with that. Well, that long period of time can be explained by one main thing. If you look at the setup and you see just how tall the brew kettle is, and you can see just where these two electric heating elements are, that heat has to rise a really long way to boil the entire liquid. So it's not all that surprising that takes a long time, but it doesn't make it any less of a pain in the ass.
Sure enough. Yeah. And no, it absolutely is. And it's two basically hot water heater elements, like big ones, mind you, but basically two hot water heater elements that are in there. And they heat the water to boiling, and then we, got our boil on. Then we added in our hops. I think one was right away, and one's 10 minutes left, something like that.
Yep.
Okay. And then I think with the one that was 10 minutes left, we pitched the molasses in.
Yep.
And then finished the boil off and transferred over to the kettle.
Yep. So, did we have... I don't recall us having big problems with getting the beer down to temperature. And I know Paulie has talked at length about having to go to extreme lengths to chill his water down before he sends it through the plate chiller.
Yeah,
it was just one pass, wasn't it?
It was. It was one pass. It went in a little warmer than he wanted.
Right.
And the other thing that he did, which was, I think, very smart, especially for the summertime, is he pre-chilled his fermenter with his glycol. Took it down to freezing, basically.
Okay.
So that was before we put the wort in there. And so we did run it through his plate chiller and then into the fermenter. And between the plate chiller doing its thing, the fermenter being pre-chilled, I think we came out to 74, something like that.
Okay.
Which is, not bad
Yeah, I mean it's on the higher end of the yeast, but
Yeah,
you're still okay at that point.
we did end up waiting a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is just time to drink more beer. That's it.
and it was. Yeah. Jason has a rather humorous video, which I'd be okay if we shared it, of Polly trying to describe how to properly introduce the yeast to the fermenter
That's right. I did take a video of that.
using
We may have to post that at a later time. I'm not prepared enough for
using
that.
a analog of something that he had on his table that just wasn't making any sense to me, because I was just like, you dump it in that part up there, right? And he's like, well, yeah, but you do this and this, and I'm like, all right. So he's very particular about sanitation, and
Right.
he can't be faulted for that at all. I think in that moment it was a bit excessive, but better safe than sorry.
Sure.
So, but he was describing something to me, and with what I was looking at, he's like, "Does that make sense?" Oh,
Nope.
no. So, yeah,
That was a bit vilifying for me because I have been around Polly at the brewery quite a bit, and I have had my own struggles trying to follow some direction that he's been giving me. So that kind of just safely indicates, okay, maybe that's not entirely me just being dumb.
but he's.
I mean, it's
just,
partially. I'm not
I'm
absolving
sure it was
myself.
partially me too. But he's just so familiar with his equipment and how he does
Right.
things that
Right.
sometimes it's not the easiest to describe. So
It's
I
not.
get it.
And not only does he know the system, but he has that natural engineer's mindset that just like that sequence of things just makes really good sense to him.
Yeah. So
And he's a good brewer because of it.
absolutely is, yeah. And he does, when he gets to the fermenter side of things, he does have a very standard fermenter setup. And he has a so no real issues there. He does so one quick note, when we were transferring it over, some breweries, as they're transferring the beer over, they will oxygenate their beer in the line. And they'll use a carb stone in the through line. After it goes through the plate chiller, it'll go through some oxygenating and then into the fermenter.
Right.
He does things a little bit differently, which I'd be curious to see, although it would take probably some chemical analysis that I don't feel like doing. What he does is he gets everything into his fermenter through the plate chiller and then uses the carb stone in the fermenter to oxygenate it. Just runs some oxygen through there and oxygenates his beer that way. It must work, at least to some effect, because he usually gets a pretty solid fermentation. I can't recall him contacting us with any major issues. So, it must work.
So this is mainly what I know is what he's doing. Go through the plate chiller and then aerate it as it's going into the fermenter. That's not a standard practice?
So, that's not what he did. Remember, he went through the plate chiller and then he aerated it inside the fermenter. He hooked up to the carbonation stone, and instead of running CO2, he ran oxygen. So
Oh, okay.
it wasn't
All right,
a through
all right.
line
Okay.
thing where
Oh,
you're
okay.
carbonating the liquid as it's going through.
Oh wow. Okay. All right. I have questions then. I'll have to ask Paulie because I misinterpreted what I was seeing then.
Yeah. So I mean, like I said, it must work.
Are you are you talking about that pump on wheels that we moved around and had to attach the two different
Yeah.
lines to?
Yeah.
No, that was the purpose of that was to sanitize the fermenter.
It was, and then it was to transfer the beer to the fermenter. That's what he used to transfer it as well. So he ran Star Sand, or not Star Sand, but
Right.
I don't remember some acid that he ran through it.
Right. Right.
Dumped all that out, and then ended up using that pump to run the beer over.
Oh boy, I need pictures. Okay.
That's okay.
I don't remember that pump. The one that was specifically the one that was on wheels, being part of the transfer from the brew kettle to the fermenter.
I'm reasonably certain it is, but either way,
okay.
what didn't happen during the transfer process was oxygenation.
Okay, all
and
right.
aeration. That happened afterwards.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's just maybe walk through this, because he did have that setup that was connected with the fermenter with the sight glass. Do you remember that?
I do. Yeah.
So I've always understood that as having the aeration stone. Some part
Not
of
in
that
this
unit.
case.
Not in this case. Okay.
Not in this
All right.
case. Yeah, a lot of
All right,
times you will have an aeration stone near a sight glass like that, so you can see you can actually see the bubbles in there
Right,
to make
exactly.
sure it's
That's why
working
it's there.
correctly. Yep. But that not in this case.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Pauly.
One thing I
questions.
can tell you, tri-clamps are still a pain in the ass.
That'll never change.
I'm sure
That
they get
will
better
never change.
as you get used to using them, but boy, they're a pain.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you'll be back in time for the tapping of the beer, correct?
Well, I'll be back. I'm not sure I'll be back, but I will be expecting at least one snow globe.
Oh, you can fully expect that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, that was basically. Go ahead.
No, I honestly I was reminded this week that the tapping of that beer is going to be sooner than we think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be pretty
The
quick.
turning of those beers is, especially being an ale, it's not all that long.
Yeah.
And in a small brewery like that, it's in everybody's interest that you're turning beer all the time. Mm-hmm. Filling kegs, emptying the fermenter, putting a new beer in there. That's just the flow of business.
Yep.
So yeah, and I'll be excited to try it. I'll be sad that you won't be there, but yes, you will absolutely be participating and enjoying said product.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will definitely do that on the show here.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Speaking of the show, we did record an episode that was a bit chaotic while we were out there. So
live on-site recording from Route 66 Old School Brewing. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So
we'll
expect
be cutting that together in the. Look out for new episode coming soon.
Okay.
Good?
Yes. Yeah, so new audio podcast coming soon.
Yes.
What was I going to say? So that was basically our brew day, and it had its challenges, and cleanup took a little bit. Had to take all, like I said, take the equipment apart and clean it in Polly's Paw Patrol pool.
Isn't that great?
It works, man. MacGyver would be proud.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. Yeah. Trying to think if there's anything else to say on that. Okay. I don't think so. Do you think of anything?
No, I think that's our brew day. Save the Clock Tower Amber Ale is what we will be enjoying in the coming weeks. George will be doing a live review here on the webcast, and I will be drinking the beer before that, probably. That's that.
Before we head out, I think I'd be remiss if we didn't hit the reception setup.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I do want to talk about the jockey box.
Yeah. So, do you want to take that?
Sure.
Okay.
So, I got married recently. As the recent social media post had mentioned. Thank you to everybody for being amazing throughout it. Thank you to George for being in the wedding party, for being the absolute pro that he was on all fronts, the beer front being one of those. And we will talk about that at length here today. Just to describe the reception, let me just describe it this way. It was a backyard reception with many different dinner tables set up underneath tents. That was the original design. It worked just fine. What reception in that type of setting would be complete without a homebrew presence to some degree, especially being that, we pride ourselves on being all things beer and beer making here. So of course, who would I be not to seize the moment and be like, yes, the beer that's going to be available is going to be my own. Well, that was the plan from very early on, and we did get to realize that. So the plan up until about a week before the wedding was I was going to load up my kegerator and my kegs and bring them over to said house, store a kegerator in said garage, and then end up pouring beers just from that garage location to whoever ordered them. And I credit George for raising his hand and saying, hey, Jason, there's a way better idea. How about we set up a jockey box? We could set it up anywhere on the property that we want, and we can have fresh, cold tap beer available anywhere. Okay, that's a great idea. And thankfully, I belong to a brew club, the JBG, that just happens to have said material available to members. Okay, so make a few phone calls. Sure, it's available. Okay, can I go pick it up? Sure. Okay, come on over. Oh, by the way, we have a trash raider that can hold 4 kegs. How much beer am I pouring? 4 kegs. Okay, this is coming together nicely.
Yeah.
Got material to said location. Iced down the kegs. Set up the jockey box, and homebrew beer was enjoyed by a crowd of about 65 guests.
Yeah. So
to the delight of most of that crowd too.
Yeah, no, went over very well. Jason, you made some great beer. Yeah. I will say, so we set everything up, and towards the end of it, I had to do a work call. I wasn't in my right mind when I was.
Oh wow!
When we were finishing up, and usually in a situation like that where we're gonna finish up and we're not gonna be there and everything, I'm gonna disconnect the beer lines and in the from the kegs just to make sure nothing goes wrong. Well, I wasn't thinking about it, did not do that. And so there's a jockey box sitting on top of the trasherator, which is 55-gallon trash dumpster thing on wheels. And all the lines are hooked up. And we leave, and I'm just like, the next morning I wake up, and it's the wedding day. I wake up at like 5:30 in the morning, just in a cold sweat, like, oh dear God, what if some intrepid raccoon jumped on top of that jockey box, opened up one of those lines, and there's beer all over this dude's yard. So,
fortunately, we did not realize that said problem.
No intrepid raccoons in Bartlett, Illinois.
No, nothing like that. Thankfully.
But definitely ran through my mind. So, we iced it up on Friday. On Saturday, I definitely had to refresh the ice. The catering company was awesome. Poured the homebrew beer. And actually, the woman who runs the catering company told me that Jason had a first. It was the first time they ever served homebrew beer at an event that they ran. So,
and I'm very happy to be the first.
Yeah.
So, if any of our listeners out there are interested in having a jockey box for a special event or building a jockey box, it is simpler than you would think.
Yeah.
So let's first look at what an image of the inside of what a jockey box looks like. So check this out.
Mm-hmm.
Standard cooler, tap here, chiller lines throughout here. The one we had was a little bit different because this here has steel liquid lines that the beer will travel through. Mm-hmm. The one we had soft like food grade vinyl lines. Is that right? The material there?
It
vinyl?
Did, but I think the real like chilling part was that metal piece at the bottom.
The metal piece? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I should know the name for that, and I'm not sure I do.
I don't either, to be honest. I'm not sure what it was, but whatever it was, it worked real well.
Yeah.
Had 3 lines through it and worked real well.
Yep. And it's the soft material liquid lines going through this. It's the thing is made of steel. And what helps it along, of course, get the beer real cold is the fact that you're always pouring ice over this vessel right here. Well, metal is a good conductor of hot or cold, and in this instance, cold. So it just happened to chill the lights down very well, and we had no issues whatsoever pouring cold beer.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
what else? I want to get in the weeds here and talk about the construction, but I probably need a better image for it.
Some of those are really fancy, aren't they?
Yeah. Look
Yeah.
at this right here. It's in a
Jason,
square
the bottom row, 1, 2, 3, 4 from the right.
Here we go.
One. Yep, that's basically what we
Cold
had.
plate.
A cold plate. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So
all right.
ours
Yes.
was
Oh,
a
this
3
is
faucet
perfect.
one.
Yep.
Yeah. So we just dumped a crap ton of ice on top of that.
Yep.
And I don't think we had to refresh the ice on that all day. I'm pretty sure it kept.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. So
I mean, when you have 100 pounds of ice, it speaks for itself.
So yeah, but it worked really well.
It did. What else? Okay, so let's just look at the parts here, just so we add some more color to this. So you've got your tap handles right here. So so if you buy a cooler by itself, plan to drill into it, probably a 1/4-inch spade bit or something like that, whatever the width of the shank is that you're going to put through. Attach the tap there. This is a liquid line attached to a metal nut that goes on top of the shank, down then through the metal plate, and then out through the metal plate to the back of the vessel. And that's where your liquid lines would connect. Don't forget, of course, you're going to need CO2 to push the liquid through. And the recommended PSI for pushing the liquid through one of these is 25, which is way higher than what a standard keg transfer temperature is. But I didn't ask a whole bunch of questions, but that's part of what a lot of resources said.
So I was wondering about that afterwards, Jason, is that I wonder, because the first image you showed was of those coils. And when you have those coils in there, that's a lot of line to run the beer through.
It is a whole lot, yeah.
So my thought with that 25 psi was, if you're using a cold plate,
because it's got a long way to travel through.
Because it's got a shorter distance to travel through the cold plate, I think. Because it doesn't
Exactly.
have all those coils.
That's okay. Yes, I'm on the same page with you.
Yeah.
So if you have
less?
if you have all that extra line, that's more pressure, so you can get the liquid to travel through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
So could you get away with 15 psi with a cold plate?
The answer is probably yes.
Either way, it was not over pressurized when we were there. I don't feel.
No, it was not.
So
I guess the one thing to caution, because we did find out after the event itself that one of the liquid lines did freeze over, or at least that's what we think. We thought we tapped and killed off a beer in about an hour and a half, and such was not the case. So I got a little beer left over that was not expected.
I think it froze at the bottom of the keg.
That's the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah. So
I got a little bit of extra beer here.
Oh, shucks.
Yeah.
It was your hazy that was just going gangbusters. Everybody loved it.
That was the go-to for everybody that day.
Yeah. So what did you have? You had a hazy, you had a stout,
Kolsch.
a harvest stout. A Kolsch?
Yeah. Oh,
you had
it was branded as a golden ale. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, let's keep it that terms. Yes, we had a golden ale, we had a hazy, and we had the autumn stout, which was branded as a harvest ale.
So the one you're calling a Kolsch, wasn't that a cream ale?
Yes.
So
I got 3 different names. I got 3 different names on this, depending on what the audience is.
Okay, so that's why we ended up calling it a golden ale, so we didn't have to answer questions.
Exactly. That's exactly why. the least amount of questions will be asked because everybody in their brains can piece together Golden Ale.
Yeah, and people love that one too. So
Yeah, it's a
and
good
then
beer.
the last one you had was the root beer, which
Yeah.
I think was not quite as popular, but I think that was, lack of advertising of the fact that we had a root beer. I believe was the biggest problem there.
Probably so.
So yeah,
It's not going to go bad. So be here at the house. There'll be future events. So
all in all, very successful
absolutely
beer day.
It was a very, very successful beer day. And honestly, it would not have worked out if it were not for George's efforts. So
Nah.
I cannot deny you any credit on that front. You really made the difference, and I'm very grateful for it.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So yeah, I guess we can't talk about the event without mentioning the fact that we all melted.
Yes.
It was hotter than the fires of hell.
Yeah. Jason went the formal wedding route in
Yeah.
July.
Yeah, I did.
So we were all in. Would you call that a 3-piece tux?
Sure.
Because there was the jacket, the
tuck-
vest,
yeah,
the shirt,
Yeah,
and
jacket sure didn't last.
No, I didn't even bring mine in.
No. I'll tell you,
left
I
that
was
in the
worried
car.
about being asked about needing that for any part of the reception. Man, that would have been bad times if I had
Yeah.
to.
So, but yeah, we all melted pretty well.
Yeah.
And then it rained a lot, and we thought,
For about 30 minutes.
we thought, that'll cut the humidity, and it did.
No.
For about 10 minutes,
And then made it worse.
and then made it worse.
Because then you get all that added moisture that mixed with the heat, and it's, yeah.
Yeah. So, July weddings remain super super interesting
/ risky.
/ risky. Yeah.
So yeah. So after the wedding, after honeymoon, we're back here, and I thought it was very appropriate that the first thing that got done right after the return from all these events was doing the webcast here, and getting back to things that I enjoy a lot, which are all things beer and beer making, and of course making these broadcasting events such as webcasting and podcasting. So I'm very, very happy that this came together. And George, thank you for carving Friday night time out for the webcast this week.
No worries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, okay, we cannot close out the show without talking about your brewing efforts, because will your materials be here on time?
So I ended up not ordering them.
Why?
Yeah, I know. I have other things I need to do this weekend, and long term it's going to be really good. But unfortunately, it does mean that I'm not going to be able to brew this weekend.
Okay.
So it is still on the docket. I'm going to remake my my summer shandy, lemon lime shandy, with a few modifications based on the last time I made it. But unfortunately, it will not be this weekend.
All right. Well, will this be a long-term project, or are you looking in the next couple of weeks to make
Next
the shandy?
couple of weeks, yeah.
Oh,
to make
okay.
the shandy. Yeah,
All right.
So,
Right on.
Yeah.
Are you holding up okay, bachelor life?
I am getting some stuff done here.
Okay, all right,
I will
cool.
admit that I sat down and I was playing a video game last night, and I ended up dying at one point and looked up and was like, oh shit, it is 11:30 at night and I have to be up at 6 o'clock in the morning. So
Hasn't happened in a while.
yes, so that that happened. But
Okay,
yes,
all right.
Yeah.
Well, right on.
Yeah.
On. All right. Well, we'll look forward to hearing about the Shandy Brew Day,
Okay.
and we'll be picking a topic. We do our webcast. Our normal broadcasting time is Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. This is a special edition recording today, being that travel has ended and we had some big things to talk about. The building of the jockey box, breweries of northern Wisconsin, and many other things. So I'm glad we got to do this. Paulie could not join us tonight, unfortunately. He is traveling to a cabin this weekend, and I believe he's in the middle of a car trip. So we knew it was going to be difficult for him to join. We wish him a very good weekend and back here on the webcast next week. We will be back here this coming Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. You can check out our YouTube page for our past webcast episodes. You can check out our audio podcast under the same name, A Nice Place to Brew. And as we mentioned earlier on in the episode, check out that page because we do have an upcoming episode that'll be released soon. This was broadcasted live from Route 66 Brewing, Route 66 Old School Brewing in Wilmington, Illinois. Recorded live on site with all three of us. First time the three of us have been together in 2+ years, I believe.
Yeah, we also have a special guest that made an appearance on.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
We can't even. We'll tease that, but we won't say on the air who that was. Check out our website at www.aniceplacetobrew.com and our social media links at A Nice Place to Brew and Nice Place to Brew. We'll be back here on Thursday. Thank you so much for checking us out. For those of you who are viewing during the webcast time, thank you so much for taking out some time on your Friday night to listen to us. We'll be back here on Thursday, and let's send this out properly. We raise a glass, and we say, it takes a lot of good beer to make great beer. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.